Joining us to the Talbot County Council. We're still here at the Wyoke Room as we observe the COVID-19 social distancing. Thank you for being with us this evening. I would ask that everyone join me for a word of prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask so humbly this evening for healing. And we ask for your loving arms to wrap around this nation that right now seems to be breaking at the seam. We ask right now for your healing powers to be upon this nation, and that we all will look inward and try to see you and our fellow man. We ask that we will treat each other with the same love that you have treated us with. We ask that you also will try to live a better life and strive to be better individuals and better people. Although we may come from different backgrounds and different upbringings, we ask that you will lead us and guide us as one people in one nation. This we pray in thy name. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And again, good evening. My mic is not on, so make sure your mics are on, everyone. Who's your mic?
We're telling us they didn't need.
I'm sorry, you do not need the mics tonight.
Okay.
We're trying a new something.
We're trying something new with the surround sound mic, so we'll turn these off and we'll see if they can hear us at home, or we get a bunch of nasty grams in about 2 minutes.
Our phone.
Okay, thank you. Council, you do have your agenda before you. I would ask if there's any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. Hearing none, the chair moves that the agenda be accepted with unanimous consent. Council, you also have within your packet minutes from your May 12th meeting. You should have a chance to go through those minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? I'm hearing myself here in the room. Hearing none, the chair moves that they also be accepted with unanimous consent. Moving on, we have disbursements from June the 2nd and June the 9th. Should have a chance to go through those and also consult with our fiscal officer, Ms. Lane. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those disbursements? Hearing none, the chair moves that they also be accepted with unanimous consent. Thank you. Council, next on your agenda, we're going to hear an update from the CARES Individual and Business Assistance Program. Council is very aware that Talbot County received $6.4 million from the federal government through the state of Maryland for CARES. That is the money that the federal government set aside for states to help out individuals, and in this case businesses also that have been impacted by the coronavirus shutdown that has happened across the nation. So we're going to hear from Ms. Lane if she's here. So Cassandra Vanhooser and our tourism director, are they out in the hallway?
I saw Angela, but
Okay.
I did not see Cassandra yet.
Okay, we'll give them a moment. Was Ms. Webb not with us from DSS this evening?
Mr. President, I would like to make sure that everybody understands the $6.4 million did not come to just the county. It's split in half, so we need to help people understand that we only got half of that on the county side. The
That's
state
right.
gets the other half.
That's right.
No, but then they forward fund it. Once we get close to the end of the 3.2, we can get the rest of the 3.2 when we get running low, they'll forward fund again. So we do get a total of 6.4. It was split between health-related expenses and county-related COVID expenses and these grant programs.
Well, if anybody knows about money, we have here with us our fiscal officer, Ms. Lane, and she'll run through the wherefores and the whys and hows and who got what. Ms. Lane, thanks for being with us today, and I want to first of all, thank you for your part that you played in co-chairing the CARES effort as far as getting that team together and coming up with the application process. I do understand that the individual applications have already been circulated throughout the county, and I believe the business applications went online on Friday or yesterday, went online yesterday. So to those small business owners, you're going to enlighten them tonight as to how they can go about their filing as well. But so I'll turn it over to you if you was going to give some background regarding the CARES funding and then what we've done thus far, and kind of let people know where they can get the application.
Okay, basically the county had applied for CARES funding to assist individuals and businesses with impacts related to the COVID-19 public health emergency. We have allocated initially $1.2 million for each for each segment. $1.2 million for the individual assistance, $1.2 million for the business assistance. So first I'd like to talk a little bit about the individual assistance. That program, we were up and running just over a week ago, and that program is to provide individual assistance. And one component of that that is sort of invisible to the public is the part that will continue to support our food pantries. That's being done through the Emergency Operations Center, and that is an ongoing effort, so funds will be channeled through to continue that program for as long as we have funding, but hopefully through the end of the calendar year. Also, we have some money for legal assistance, primarily surrounding eviction type situations, but it can be for any other situation related to COVID-19. That program is really not up and running yet. I'm working with several legal providers in the county to get that program going. I've contacted Midshore Pro Bono, Legal Aid, Midshore Council on Family Violence, and someone else who I don't remember right now.
Okay.
But we're working on getting that program up and running. There's a little bit of time with that because the primary focus of that was evictions. Evictions won't start until sometime in July, based on the governor's order. So we know we have some time there for the legal aspect of that. And we're hoping that our individual assistance program, the other component, will hopefully avoid evictions. And so the individual assistance program, the next segment, is to provide emergency cash assistance for individuals who have been impacted by the COVID-19 public health emergency, primarily those who are out of work, who've lost their job, or whose incomes have been dramatically reduced because of responses to the public health emergency. These funds can be used to help with rent, mortgage, other housing costs, utilities, and maybe and what other emergency needs that we haven't really thought of that come up. And the payments will be made directly to the landlord or the mortgage company rather than to the individual. That way it's not taxable income to the individual. So we are working to assist individuals. And individuals can apply for the individual assistance program from the Department of Social Services. They can call a number at the Department of Social Services, 410-820-4347, and leave a message. Because they're still working on a somewhat closed operation, calls will be returned the next business day, but they will email or mail or fax applications out to individuals. And then once the applications are completed, they do need to be returned to the Department of Social Services, either via mail or drop off in their drop box. In addition, applications are also available at the Neighborhood Service Center, pretty much Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're available at the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is located on Canvasback Drive. They're open Tuesdays from 1 to 4 and Saturdays from 12 to noon. The application is also on the Talbot County COVID-19 website. So in general, anyone who is a Talbot County resident who is unable to meet an expense incurred between March 16th and December 30th of this year will, because of the public health emergency, will be eligible to apply for these funds. As of this morning, we have received 17 individual assistance applications listing 34 different needs. So the information has gotten out to some people. We do expect to see this increasing the demand. We actually really expect to see if businesses don't really ramp up to full capacity in terms of rehiring individuals. We expect in the summer, August, September, to see a real increase in need because a number of these individuals are receiving the federal supplement with unemployment, which provides an additional $600 a week. So right now, many people are able to meet their obligations, but when that runs out, which should be early July, if they aren't fully back to work, we do expect to see an increase in requests for funding at that time. In addition, on the business side, we have a pot of money for that, $1.2 million, and the county is giving up grants up to $10,000 for expenses to assist businesses. Again, it has to be related to the COVID-19 public health emergency, but examples are rent, utilities, mortgage payment, new equipment that may be needed, such as point-of-sale systems that are touchless faucets, touchless lights, things like that. Obviously, if they had to do any additional sanitizing or disinfecting of their business, and supplies, protective equipment for their customers, protective equipment for their employees. Those are the general items that would be eligible for this the grant program. And that application is actually on the Economic Development website. It's an online application. It was up as of yesterday morning, and I believe as of this morning they had over 20 applications. So the word has gotten out.
And Angela, it's also available on the COVID website, just like the individual.
Oh, yes, yeah. And we have done, Linda Webb with Department of Social Services and Cassandra Vanhooser did a radio discussion about the two programs with WCEI and Winks earlier. Actually, they may have gone out on Monday. And I know it has been picked up by WDMT, so it is on their website as well. So we are getting the word out. With the business community, we believe it will be primarily a first come, first serve type of situation. Those grants may go very quickly. So we are encouraging businesses to apply sooner rather than later for that. Priority is being given to businesses who have not already received other federal or state grant programs. I don't know if council has any questions on.
No, and thank you for going over that, Ms. Lane.
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
So who reviews and opens the application?
The individuals is being reviewed by the Department of Social Services, who is also verifying, because they have access to a number of state systems, they can verify unemployment. They will be contacting employers to get information if salaries have been reduced. They'll also contact the landlords to determine the amount of rent payments that may be due. So Social Services is doing that for the individual side. And on the business side, there is a team who's reviewing the applications, consisting of members of the development, or the Economic Development Board, and Rich Leffler, who's with the Small Business Development Group.
I see. Okay.
And on the small business side, this is truly for small business with 50 employees or less.
Yes.
So
I didn't say that, sorry.
No, that's fine. But again, your team that you put together, you and Linda Webb from the Department of Social Services, you jumped on this at the request of the committee, and you really got things together very quickly. You pulled in Marilyn Neal from the Neighborhood Service Center and representatives from St. Vincent de Paul and made this work. I got a phone call at home the other day from a business owner wanting to know how to she had the wrong application. She had the individual application, which talked about here the household and those kind of things, those kind of questions that we have on the individual application. And I said, no, you got the wrong application. Call over to the county office and get the correct application. So people, as you said before, have heard. They are asking about it. So this is to help our citizens. So if you know small business owners that are struggling because of the COVID shutdown, direct them to these funds. If you know individuals that you come across in your travel, bartenders or cooks who have been impacted, they're back on their mortgage, they're back on their light bill, point them to this service. We want to help as many people. We don't have a lot of money, but we want to help as many people as we can. And to Ms. Lane's credit, they've done an excellent job making sure they have checks and balances so that our reporting of these funds is beyond reproach. And to Cassandra's credit, her team has really come up and worked with the small business community to find out what do you need, what needs to be in the application, the W-9 forms, and all of those state and federal requirements, so that if we have to show the state and federal government how the funds were dispersed, we will have those records. And Ms. Lane will be the keeper of all those records, so it will go through the review of DSS, and then that form will go back over to finance. Finance will check it and then issue payment to the vendor or business in question. So Ms. Lane will have all those records when it comes time for review.
So, Mr. President, I just want to echo your thanks to Angela Lane, Cassandra Vanhooser, Linda Webb, and a lot of other people who have put these processes together very quickly. But you all will not toot your own horn, but you deserve recognition for directing staffing to do this and for submitting the application. So I think I've just watched this in awe. I am amazed. There's nothing better in terms of local government. This is really helping those that need it the most.
Right.
And it's direct. There aren't a lot of bells and whistles, hoops to jump through, and it's to your credit that you've directed your team to do this. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Yeah, get the word out. We have 1.2 million, but we want to spend this. We don't want to return any of this money back to the state.
Right.
We want to spend every nickel, every dime of it. So, anything else, Ms. Lane?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it.
And
Mr.
Mr.
President,
President,
we're going to have to take a 2-minute recess. The sound quality is not good for the callers in, so we're going to try one fix.
Okay, council, we have to take a recess. We'll take 5. Thank you.
So we're just going to put the microphones
Now back in session, we're going to continue on with our agenda. And council, next on your agenda, we would have an update and request by the Talbot County Airport Board. Micah Risher, our airport manager, is here with us. Do you have any members of your board with you, Micah?
No, sir, not tonight. Mr. Pettit sends his regards. He was not able to attend.
Send Jack our regards as well. We haven't seen him in a bit. So with that, I'm going to step aside so I don't want to block the screen, and I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Pack. Council, I appreciate your time this evening. Am I speaking loud enough? Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me? Okay.
Literally up against it.
Okay. So first we'll talk about our capital improvement and this year's ACIP request. This year we're seeking $1.6 million in reimbursements, primarily for aviation easements, wetland mitigation, and our Forest Conservation Act fees that we've paid. This is all money that's being reimbursed. These are monies that we've already expended over the past 2 years. So the official total is $1,617,688, all of which all's been expended except for $63,000. We have letter of intent signed on one property that we hope to pick up within the next month or two, but we'll be reimbursed almost immediately for that money. So nearly $1 million of this is land acquisition services and purchases, $600,000 roughly for 10.79 acres of wetland mitigation, and a little over almost $42,000 of the Forest Conservation Act fees. And all of this is for our runway safety improvement that we are undertaking at the airport. So this would be the request, is for council to approve us submitting this request for reimbursement to the FAA for this year.
You want just a straight up motion right now? I mean, we're requesting for reimbursement. That's always a good thing to get the money back. Thank you for getting that application and filled in so that we can get those monies back. So I will make that motion.
I second it. All right, council will call the roll. Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Motion was passed, 5-0.
You have another point as well, right?
I do. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. Actually, we're going to dig right into the meat and potatoes of why we're here tonight, is to talk about our obstruction removal program, which is the first phase, if you will, of our overall runway safety improvement project. So I want to talk about the current timeline that we are on. If you see here on this slide, we're looking at this year, 21 and 22, focused on obstruction removal, primarily trees. And then we're looking at also in 22, designing the runway 422, the first phase of relocating the runway, which would call for the demolition of the current Talbot Business Center site to begin in year 2023. I want to say that's the current state for what we had planned going into this year. Obviously, there's some things that need to be reevaluated, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about, just bring you up to speed on. So currently, as programmed, we're programmed to begin demolition in 23, with 24 through 26 being the completion of the demolition and the start of the relocation of the threshold. FAA shared with us earlier this year that we need to reevaluate that timeline, because the amount of money that it's going to be require, it exceeds what they know they're going to be able to do. So as an example, they've indicated they're not going to be able to, they can commit about $4 million maximum in those years after 23. The work that we have currently projected is going to cost $5 to $8 million annually. There's no way we're going to accomplish $8 million worth of work in a year that FAA said they can give us no more than 4. So we're going to have to take a hard look at the whole timeline between 23 and 26. So what I'm saying is, over the next 6 months, I'm going to get with the engineers from AECOM, because now that it's coming into focus, that this project it's been on the horizon for so long, but now we're getting closer to it, and so now we really have to focus on the details of what this really is going to look like. Now,
Micah?
Yes, ma'am.
And that money is completely separate than what they reimbursed us, or what they are going to be reimbursing us for the business center itself.
that is correct.
Okay.
That is, yes, these are future monies, yes. The other thing that I have to say is, we all know that COVID-19 is the wild card now, and our grants are funded through the AIP program with money that flows into the Airports and Airways Trust Fund. That is fees put on airlines, ticket sales and things of that nature. They're down by 90% as much this year, so that not a lot of money's flowing into that. Congress must act to keep the fund, to put funding there. It will not be there next year. So that's something else that we're gonna have to take a look at. So, which is good for us, because we are in a conservative mode right now. We are getting reimbursed, right? So we're okay. But as far as the timeline of what we are gonna be able to do at that site, it really has to be taken a look at and evaluated closely. So, and also I want to just point out, when we say demolition will begin in 23, obviously that doesn't mean the whole building's going to come down in a pile of rubble in one day in 23. I believe that we can look at scaling the demolition. I believe we can look at a plan that starts on the back corner. Maybe we start with parking lots, and we start with light poles. We start with recycling things that we can recycle. Something big that I want everybody to know is absolutely our plan to recycle as much of that building as possible, including the concrete and the asphalt, to be used as sub-base for the future taxiways, out on the new airfield. So
We just so happen to have a repurposing center.
and that is and that ties into the plan perfectly. Yes, Warren and I have absolutely talked about that. So I just wanted to let you know that that's where we are currently planning for 23, but over the next 6 months, we're going to be taking a hard look at it with the engineers and really coming up with a reasonable plan and give us a better timeline, because obviously our goal is to keep that property up and running as long as possible, because we have good tenants in there. It is a business incubator, and that's been great for the county, and we want to keep it financially viable as we manage it to demise. So we wanted to make sure we win all the way around and keep the asset as long as possible. So, all right. So, I want to explain a couple things before we dig into our obstruction removal program. So this graphic there that you see should be in your packet, and you'll hear me refer to the CFR Part 77 contours. You may hear that. I know you really can't see that very well from where you are, but basically that's what I'm talking about. Those are those imaginary surfaces that extend around the airport. It's a pretty in-depth calculation, but I just want you to know that these are the standards that we go by to establish what the floor of our navigable airspace is, and then everything we do is built upon knowing where that floor is. So the reason this is important is because sometimes it's hard to stand somewhere and have somebody tell you that tree is too high. It affects the airport. This is the example of the calculations where we go to. So as an example, you can't see it, but some of those closest lines to the airport are rated at 50 feet, right? So, but you also have to have a surveyed elevation at the site of where you're looking at the obstruction. So basically, if you're in a 50-foot contour and you have a surveyed elevation of 25, you can only have a 25-foot obstruction on that piece of property. So it's a lot that goes into it. So I just wanted to point that out, because as I show you some of the plans for where we're going to be taking trees out, you may look at it and say, how does that tree impact the airport? And it has to do with these calculations. So I wanted to make sure we covered that. And of course, our obstruction removal program is a 3-year program. And like I said, we're going to work on it this year, and then in 21 and 22. This graphic here, which I hope you can see a little bit, it's not terrible. This is the overall overview of the program. So as you can see, we are going to be doing work all quadrants of the airport. Okay, it's not all focused on the Talbot Business Center site. We have easements out on Brooks Drive, Commerce Drive, Hazelwood. We have stuff up on what we call the 3-3N, which is out by North Park, Suburban Propane. We have stuff up on the 1-5N, which is out in the country, and we have stuff up on the 2-2N, which extends all the way out to the mobile home retirement community out there. So we have interest in removing obstructions from all of those properties over the next 3 years. So this year, we have our first package that's going to basically take about a third of that and remove those obstructions. And then, the next 2 years we'll follow on. Yes, ma'am.
So please don't make people tremble, because we went through this about 10 years ago, and by obstructions, you are referring to trees.
We're talking about trees, yes.
Trees. We are not
Absolutely.
talking about homes, we are not talking about anything else other than trees and, yes.
Trees, light poles, the only building that's going to be removed is the one that we own, which is
Yes.
the business. Yeah, yes, ma'am, absolutely. So I just wanted to show you that graphic to kind of give you the visual of how vast this program is. It's roughly, if you exclude the airport property, it's about 80 more property interests. Some of these properties are partnerships that are co-owned. I know we're working on one property that I think there's like a 6-way partnership in it. So it's a lot of negotiating, a lot of talking to different people, a lot of lawyers. There's a lot going into getting the rights to go on these properties to take these trees down. The good news is, once this work is done, we should be set for a very long time, because we are acquiring literally millions of dollars worth of easements. So we'll be able to keep those trees trimmed, for 100 years. We won't have to do this again. So we're going through the hard part now. So, any questions about the overall before we get into the? Okay.
So Mr. Risher, these, all of these homeowners, all these private property owners are being compensated for their loss of the value of their home from the loss of a mature tree or whatever it is, whatever the measure is.
That is absolutely correct. The majority, I think all the residential properties, they have been financially compensated, yes. There's still, well, the ones that we have agreements with so far, there's still some that are in states of negotiation. So there's other properties like with the town of Easton, state highway, county owned, things of that nature where we are able to secure just removal rights without any financial compensation. All right, so if we go to our slides here, and I apologize, this doesn't look like it wants to go full screen, but this is the Talbot Business Center site that you're looking at here. And this is going to be, all right, so let me back up a little bit and talk about what phase 1 is going to look like. So our phase 1 is going to begin in September, okay? We've already been out for bid. We have a lowest bid that we have not awarded yet, because we are working with the Maryland Aviation Administration on funding level. Because of everything that's going on, they don't know where they're going to be able to fund this project. Usually, in years past, they funded at 75%. I've stated a few times that even before COVID, they were having funding issues, and so they were not going to be able to fund it any more than 50%. So we are hoping they're going to be able to fund at the 50% level. So I have money aside in this year's budget to do this project. I actually have contingency funds aside too. This is a priority for the airport, but once the MAA lets us know what they can fund, then I'll bring it to you guys to review. I'm hoping it's at least 50%, which would be fine. If they surprise us with 75%, which could happen because of some variables, then we'd be very ecstatic about this. So within the next couple months, I'll come to you for that. And then in September, we'll give the notice to proceed to the contractor. Once we give the notice to proceed to the contractor, they have 2 weeks to begin the project, and then it has to be completed within 75 days. So we're looking at a September start and finish by Christmas. A couple notes on what this is going to look like. No residential work is going to be done on the weekend, so I want to focus on that. The work that's done on airport property can be done anytime. The work that can be done in commercial areas may be done on the weekends, but there will be no residential work done on the weekends. Also, the homeowners will receive a minimum of 7 days notice before they're going to come on their property to do the tree work. The other thing too is they're not just going to come onto the property and start cutting trees. Once we give the contractor the notice to proceed, part of the contract is that the contractor must have a surveyor there. They can come ahead of time, but they must get the trees resurveyed and tagged Okay, so that homeowner's gonna know, because the surveyor's gonna come there first, and the trees are gonna be tagged that are gonna come out. Or if it's a small group of, brushed together, it'll be marked. So you're not just gonna have a contractor showing up and removing trees. So everybody will be aware. There's also gonna be a lot of oversight. The engineers from AECom are managing the project. They're gonna spend at least 35 project days here on the ground supervising. And we also have the state, and the state is going to be interested as well with some of the environmental stuff and the right-of-ways. So a lot of oversight's going to be here, and obviously I'll be out there. But when it comes to the residential stuff, there's going to be a project manager there to make sure everything goes smooth.
Micah, there's a value to that lumber that's being cut. How is that being handled?
So we gave the contractors the ability to do what they wanted with the lumber. So that way, it drove quite frankly, it drove the cost down for us, quite frankly. Letting them have the lumber if they wanted it. The bid that we received, that we are going to award, is it's a couple $100,000 cheaper than what it could have been, because we're letting them take the lumber and do what they want with it. So we were just looking for the best value to get rid of it. One thing I want to point out, you're looking at the business center site. The individual trees are marked in boxes. The shaded area with the triangles, that is all the trees. It's roughly 10 acres or so. It's all the trees behind the business center that go up to the airport. That area will be clear cut. That area will be, there will be nothing left in that area more than 1 inch off the ground. So we're prepping that area to be airfield. So that'll be probably the largest visual difference when you come down the bypass, or you're sitting at the light there by Lowe's and you'll be looking up the runway, depending on the angle. You'll see that there's an airport there, and you'll see that it's airport property, because those trees will be gone by Christmas. So that'll be different.
And so, Mr. Risher, is the airport subject to the forest conservation ordinance?
Absolutely.
We have to replant these somewhere else?
So yes, we've already paid about $42,000, and what we do is we pay the fee in lieu of to the town of Easton. So, but we pay Forest Conservation Act fees on every project.
So Mike, I got one question for you. So when that's clear cut and the building's going, and it might be on there, and I'm not just seeing it, where would the actual fence be?
That's a good, I don't have that. So the fence is going to extend onto that property. It's not going to fence the current property line. It's not going to be by the bypass. It's not going to be by Glebe Road.
Okay.
It's going to be, I want to say tastefully done, if you will, but it's hundreds of, it's probably more than 200 yards off of the side of the road there.
So we'll see just grass.
You'll see grass. Oh yes, yeah. Once this is, if you look into the future, a few, 3 to 5 years down the road, yes, that'll be just grass, and you'll see, the runway, you'll see, the runway lights and things of that nature. But that's what you'll be looking at. Kind of like when you're at the Tutu end, up at the Hertrick, when you're looking down, you're just going to see an airfield. Correct. Yeah, correct. And if it's not airfield, it'll be green grass with a perimeter road around it eventually.
I see.
So that was the big thing I wanted to point out on that site. Let me scroll down to 13. Okay, this is the residential area across the street. So this is Hazelwood. And I just wanted to point out, obviously, the squares are individual trees. I wanted to point out the shaded areas are the Leland cypresses that are on the state right-of-way. Okay, so when you go down the Parkway and you see those Leland cypresses that are buffering those homes and the apartment complex there between Glebe Road and the Old Mill Deli area, those Leland cypresses are in the state right-of-way. So we'll be removing some of them as well, not all. And I just wanted to point out, this goes back to the Part 77 contours. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look to what's the far left of your drawing there, and there's some shaded area, you can barely see in the notes, but it says 25-foot AGL, meaning any tree that exceeds 25 feet will be coming out. As you work your way to the right of your display, it actually says, I want to say, I think it says 50 50 AGL. So you can kind of see what we're talking about with those contours. So basically, the bank of Leland Cypress is closest to the intersection. Most of those are going to come out, but as you work your way up the Parkway, it'll be fewer coming out. So I just wanted you to kind of understand how that works.
So I'm trying to visualize where on there would the old mill deli be?
Oh, it's not even, the old mill deli's not even pictured on here. It's much farther up. And actually, the trees that we're taking out will only be extended right here at that bank by that neighborhood. So those are the only ones that will be taken. This is,
So this is, we're going.
so this is the business center property here.
Right.
And this is across the Parkway. Off to the left is the Lowe's.
Lowe's driveway.
The Ruby Tuesdays. Yeah.
Okay.
So these banks here, these are the lowest banks that we will have to do some removing. And that's anything over 25 feet. And again, this is in the state right away. But it's a visual,
We don't have to compensate at SAK and
we don't have to, no, we don't have to. And the reason I point this out is because it's going to be a visual difference, right? And people don't, when things change, people sometimes call and ask questions, so that's a visual difference.
We got a guy out there paving himself a tree 3 years ago.
We hope that doesn't happen. This next one that I wanted to point out, this is up on Route 50. This is the rest area up on 50, back from the gas station. So the majority of those trees will come out with this project. So just wanted to point that out. And the last property that I'll point out, and let's scroll here, we're almost there. It's the Brooks and Commerce Drive properties. We have more work that we need to do on Brooks and Commerce, but for the first phase, we're only doing a couple properties, and these trees, excuse me, are primarily on the back side of the lot. It's hard to tell which properties these are, but if you look at this one here, I know for a fact that's Hearthstone. That's where Hearthstone is. So you can kind of see there's some trees behind Hearthstone, and there's some a group of trees that are behind these properties here, and there's some out here by the road that are going to come out in phase 1. So there will be some work done in that area as well. So, any questions about how the first phase of the obstruction removal is going to go?
Good.
Good. I have some general updates for you now, so we don't need the board any longer. I just wanted to give you guys an update on how the airport's been faring through the COVID. Excuse me. So first thing I'll start off with is the airport will receive $157,000 of CARES Act grant money. That's going to be used to support our operations budget. We will not use that money for any capital expenses. There's, quite frankly, there's just a lot more strings attached to it if we use it for capital. But if we use it for operations budget, it's a lot easier to use the money. So
What was the amount again?
$157,000. So 157 is coming to the airport. Our terminal building reopened yesterday. We had our plan approved by Dr. Wadley at the health department. The primary reason for getting the terminal open a tad bit sooner than other county facilities was because of the Sugar Buns Cafe is trying to open this Friday. So we made sure that we had everything clean and signage is up, masks are required, there's setbacks, furniture's been moved. We've adhered to all CDC guidelines, and the terminal is open, and business has been operating out of there. We have an FBO, Maryland Air, that operated the entire time, fueling aircraft and providing services. They never stopped. They just allowed customers coming off the airfield side. So the only change now is that the general public side off the front is now open. Bay Runner started running last week, and so we have an agreement with them. So their customers come in and use the restroom, they get dropped off there and they wait. So there was a need to get it open for the Bay Runner customers as well. So out of our 4 FBOs that we have, Maryland Air and Easton Jet, they remained open the entire time. Trident, they stopped for a little bit for their FBO operation, but they are resumed. Business is returning to Trident. Safari Aviation, they maintain their activity level as well. Sugar Buns is going to open this Friday. I'll point out that our maintenance facilities, they weathered the storm and they kept going like gangbusters, because what happened was when planes were forced down to not fly anymore, everybody started getting maintenance done. So our maintenance facilities were busy. They were busier than
Good time to do it.
Yeah, that's what everybody figured. They couldn't fly, so they put their plane in maintenance. So
Was it any upgrades too? Did you see much of that?
yeah, so the other thing that's driving maintenance, there's a huge electronic upgrade that's happening in aviation right now. It's called ADS-B. It's basically every aircraft has to have the ability to transmit their location all the time, and that's actually a mandate for this year. And so we've been busy because of that mandate alone. So it's good. Business is good on the maintenance.
One thing, so when the restaurant be open outside?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, patio dining.
Okay.
Yes, Sugar Buns is opening for patio dining. We have the Sugar Buns Garden, which is out there between the terminal and the ramp. We brought some more picnic tables up in there for them. So yes, you'll be able to get your Sugar Buns fixed starting this Friday in the patio area. Open air, tables 8 feet apart, so all social distance guidelines.
But thanks for working with her because she needed the access to the terminal for
Right.
people to get to her because you can't access the patio from
That's
outside.
right. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that point. And also, obviously, we saw a reduction in transient business and business in general aviation. It slowed down since March. There's no question about that. It is slowly starting to increase. Actually, we've had some days that are 300 or 400 operation days. Flight schools are back. Here's a big one, the Navy's Powered Flight Program, the PFP, that Trident hosts. That was trimmed a little bit. It's only going to run for about 4 weeks. Excuse me. It's going to run for about 4 weeks, mid-July to mid-August, and it's only going to be a fraction of the students. So that that impact is going to slow the airport down a little bit, but we are continuing to move. And the corporate hangar clients are stable. The T hangars remain full. 3 to 6 month wait list on the T hangars. Financial losses in general. Roughly $10,000 worth of rents are in arrears. We're working with tenants on that. We brought a repayment plan to council a couple months ago to expecting that. So I have no concern. We'll slowly work with our customers. The fuel profit, I estimate by the end of this month, we'll be about $40,000 off this year. We're down over 116,000 gallons, so it's about 18% compared to last year. It's to be expected. And just wanted to point out just a couple more quick things. A lot of activity on our hangars. We have 3 private hangars actively for sale right now. We have the Maryland State Police. They are seeking to renew their lease next year. They want 10 more years at the airport, so we're working on that. We have West Air Avionics Shop, which is one of the maintenance shops that's been very busy. We're working on a long-term deal with them. They want a 10-year deal at the airport in the hangar. The Spitfire hangar, who was owned by Mr. Blair, reverted back to the airport in April 30th, so we have a lot of exciting plans that we can do with that. So there's a lot happening out there with hangar ownership and things of that nature. So over the next few months, I'll be bringing you several new lease deals that'll be great for the airport. The terminal building, just a couple more notes. I like to say we took lemons and made lemonade out there because when we were closed, we also renovated our bathrooms. So I worked with facilities maintenance. Brian Moore's crew has done an amazing job. We got back, those bathrooms had not been touched since 1987. So we went in there and they're actually state of the art. They're handicap accessible. They're very nice bathrooms. Well, one of them's complete, one of them will be redone, but that entire wing, that entire hallway has been renovated, painted, new everything. So it actually looks very nice, clean, modern, and we have at least one new bathroom right now, and we'll have a second one done shortly. I do have a note about for traffic statistics. Year to date, last year we were over 27,000. This year we're just over 20, so it's a 26% down, and there's no surprise. And as I said, fuel year to date, we're down about 18%. Luckily, fuel was already on the decline just before COVID. Jet fuel was down all over the region, so I was conservative in my 21 budget, and I had already come down about 10% forecasting for 21. So I think we should be close. But that's the state of the airport.
All right.
Any questions for Micah about his report, airport report?
Mr. Risher, with those revenue losses, have you had to trim expenses as well?
We, yes, we absolutely will. It's my plan looking at 21. When I built my budget, I built pockets of projects in there, small projects that I knew that we wouldn't do unless the revenues were strong, small projects. I have a $25,000 contingency, and so we're gonna see what happens through December. And also we got that $157,000 CARES Act money that'll prop it up a little bit. But I'm being very conservative this year in making sure that the revenues, flow in. The good news is I've got at least 2 items. One was the cell tower that you all approved. That's $12,000 that was not in the budget. That'll be coming in, and I'll be bringing another deal here within the next weeks that adds another $7,000 of unexpected. So it's, we're $19,000 of new revenue that was not budgeted for 21. So I really think we're going to be okay.
Did you say you had 3 hangars that you were looking for tenants?
So there's 3 hangars that are for sale.
For sale.
Current. They are for sale, and they're, commercial realtors are working 2 of them. One of them is just going on the market now. It's the one that's owned by Mr. Charlie Robertson, who passed away unexpectedly in January, big friend of the airport. So we do have 3 hangars that are for sale right now by private.
I know this is a strange question, but is it sort of written that it has to be a plane in there? Can it be anything else in there? I was just curious.
So yes, we need aircraft in there.
Okay.
We do. Especially if it's sitting on the apron like that. Yeah, because if not, we'd have to designate it as a non-aeronautical use. And we can have non-aeronautical structures on an airport, but if it's an aircraft hangar built for that use, it should hangar aircraft, because there's a revenue stream attached to the aircraft as well. Buying fuel and maintenance.
It's mostly airplanes, right?
And mostly airplanes, that's right. There actually is a percentage the FAA will let you get away with, but no, we don't want that in the big ones.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna ask Mr. Carney. So,
I was thinking nightclub.
I don't even want to know. So, Mike, have you and your board made a determination on airport day yet?
I am so glad you asked that question. So the answer is no, we haven't. We're keeping the hope alive as long as possible. We have a meeting here in 2 weeks to really make a final decision. I'm becoming a little more hopeful, quite frankly. I just saw news before I came in here that the Ocean City Air Show, which was canceled, is new life is being breathed into it, and they are going to reschedule a date later this year. So I found that to be very hopeful.
What was your tentative date?
September 26th. September 26th. So we're kind of right there in that late summer, not yet fall. Put it this way: we're going to try very hard.
Yeah.
I think it'll look different.
Right.
Certainly, I think we can make some changes and keep it safe. But we're going to the committee we have put together. There's a lot of moving pieces. Obviously, the first it starts with we have to get the airplanes, and COVID has impacted everybody. Right. So it starts with, can we even get the airplanes to come?
Right.
If we can get them to come, then we say, how can we get people out on the ramp safely?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we heard today that the waterfowl has been canceled.
I heard that.
And I got an email from Margaret earlier this morning. Do you anticipate? I know a lot of people do fly in for waterfowl. Do you anticipate revenue losses because of that event as well?
We do have a few fly-in for waterfowl, but it's not a significant amount.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Micah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too. Council, next on your agenda, we have introduction of several pieces of legislation. First is a bill regarding the short-term rental process and procedure. Madam Secretary, if you wouldn't mind reading the title of the bill.
A bill to amend Chapter 190 of the Talbot County Code, zoning, subdivision, and land development to improve and clarify the processes for licensure and oversight of short-term rentals in the county and to amend the standards for safety for licensure.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Ms. Mary Kay Verdery, our planning officer, is here. Mary Kay, I'll turn it over to you.
Just a quick review of some of the highlights of the bill. This bill has been introduced once before and was allowed to expire. The bill was accumulated from conversations with short-term rental review board and the public, and then the short-term rental review board had work sessions with the county council and initiated the first bill. Some of the things that are within this bill, it removes short-term rental review board from chapter 24 where it previously was, and keeps it all into chapter 190, the zoning code. It removes a 6-month grace period that had been put in the original language that actually expired in May of 2019, and removes a mandatory 12-month loss of your license associated with renting without a license, and allows the cheat code compliance officer to determine the period of time. It removes the 2003-2015 IRC standards for safety compliance, and it outlines very specific safety standards for short-term rentals, for fire exits, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide, rescue openings, as well as stair height and a secondary exit that's required. The owner agent needs to immediately investigate complaints and notify the planning officer of the outcome, and notify the planning office within 15 days if they change their resident agent. They need to let us know. And it removes the 4-month application period. Previously, we only accepted new applications for new licenses 4 months out of the year. This will remove that and allow us to accept the license for 12 months throughout the year. It adds some additional health department requirements, or essentially clarifies what those health department requirements are. It's really nothing new associated with short-term rentals and health department requirements, but it clarifies that language. It allows for a third-party or county inspection for the safety requirements, and that be no more than 45 days prior to the filing of your application. The public notice requirements are amended, and they require notification to property owners within 1,000 feet or within 500 feet of your property lines if you're in a more dense residential neighborhood. And it requires that you notify a homeowners association, and if you live on a private road, you need to notify everyone on that private road, even if they are not within the 500 or 1,000 foot. If they're beyond that, you still need to notify everyone on a private road.
It's a shared roadway.
Correct. The notices are sent by priority mail with delivery confirmation, and there's only one notice now. Previously, there was a requirement for 2 separate notices. We've combined all the language that needs to be put into the notice, and it's sent out in one notice, and that's sent out 21 days prior to, at a minimum of 21 days prior to the hearing. Renewals have some additional information, only if you have changed the structure. So if you've added bedrooms to your structure, or that have done some type of construction that would modify or amend the permit from your original permit, it allows us to make you go back to a new process if we feel that's necessary because you've made such significant changes.
Mary Kay, before I forget, it's a quick question. On the 21 days notice, at least 21 days before the hearing, there wouldn't be anybody that would send it out without knowing what the hearing date is.
The hearing date is part of the notification requirement. You have to specifically put the hearing date. So
Got
it'll be
it.
listed.
I just want to make sure they're not sending out so far in advance that you don't know what the hearing date is, which is, because before, when you sent out 2, you had one that you had an application, and then the second was for the hearing date.
Right.
So, okay, so just
So they can either put the information specifically into the notice, or they can include a copy of the agenda that has the information, the date, the time, the location, etc.
The important thing is the notice does include the date.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And then the last is we did define what a resident agent is. There were some questions about their role and their activity within the short-term rental process. So we defined who and what that person is and what their role is. And that's kind of the highlights of what the language is. As noted, it was previously introduced and based on COVID and some other things that particular bill was allowed to die. So this is the same information, the same bill we pick back up.
Certainly want to send my gratitude to you and Mr. Salinas, as well as our dearly departed Ms. O'Donnell, for your work on getting this together. We've had, I think, 3 or 2 work sessions on this. So we have plenty of time for public comment and for staff comment. And the changes that we made was after much review and discussion. So this wasn't done in a dark room somewhere. Again, I just want to thank you guys for leading the charge and getting this document together. And you're absolutely correct. Excuse me. COVID hit, so council had decided to let this bill elapse. Now that we're moving back, we got SERs back up and running. It was felt that it was time to go ahead and get this matter addressed and move on with our STR legislation. So again, I just want to extend my thanks to you all. Any further comment before I ask for introduction of the?
Yes, just a reminder that a month, 6 weeks ago, we had gotten some correspondence and phone calls about people not being allowed to move forward with new applications. And that was because currently in the legislation, you can only apply January, February, and is it June, July, or July, August? July, August. So they had said, well, the short-term STR boards, they're not doing anything. And I just wanted to reiterate, all of the renewals were going on, and the current legislation prohibited it, during that time period that kind of the COVID hit. And it wasn't that the council or the STR board wasn't doing its thing. This legislation died because of the state of emergency. And while we did consider maybe putting it on to change just that piece of it, by the time we would have gone through the process of introducing it, advertising for 3 weeks, and getting it done, we would have been to July 1st pretty much anyway. So, apologies that we weren't able to get this done, but we've all been dealing with the state of emergency, and this is, I'm sure going to get introduced this evening, and we couldn't get it any earlier than July 1st, no matter what we did. So everybody should be ready. And if you were planning to have a short-term rental for the year of 2020, the application process was back in January and February. It never would have been March, April, or May, anyhow. So I just wanted to remind people that that was what was going on with the new application process, but everything else has been continuing on thanks to Mary Kay and those in her department.
Okay. Okay, with that being said, the chair will ask for a show of hands for introduction tonight of this matter by council, Madam Secretary. And you have written here that this would be known as Bill 1446, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you have given me a public hearing date of Tuesday, July the 14th at 6:30 p.m.
Correct.
Thank you.
We will put this on the January 1st planning commission for recommendations, so you have a prior to meeting.
Good, thank you. Okay. All right, moving on, council, we have another matter for introduction this evening. This is regarding local beer breweries, Madam Secretary, would you please read the title of the bill?
The bill to amend Chapter 11 of the Talbot County Code, alcoholic beverages, to allow the Board of Liquor License Commissioners to issue a license for on-premises consumption of beer to Class 5 breweries and allow for local licensure for Class 6 pub breweries and Class 7 microbreweries.
Ms. Burley, Mr. Cooper Smith, who's going to take this one?
Let me start.
Okay.
I'm happy to start.
Okay.
So, the General Assembly adopted legislation that would allow certain classes of breweries to not only brew and produce beer and offer samples, but allow for the sale of beer that's produced by the brewery on site. And the requirement, though, is that the local jurisdiction must authorize that, the sale on site, or for consumption on premises. So this bill would allow
certain classes of breweries in Talbot County to sell beer that they brew for consumption on site. There are certain limitations that I'll touch on briefly. There is a limit of 5,000 beer barrels per year. Sounds like a lot. And so that's a limitation that they have. And there are also hours that they have to follow, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And they would have to also follow all of the other requirements related to sale of alcohol for consumption on premises.
So is this really very similar to the distillery bill that we did do several months ago? That the state authorized it and then the locals have to give that final permissions?
That's right. It's very similar.
Of the class 5 here in Talbot County, I believe we only have one that we know of as a class 5, or is there more?
I believe Eastern Shore Brewing is a class 5.
It's the only class 5?
But I would have to confirm that, and I can't think of any others.
Yeah, neither can I. Well, I know that, thank you very much, Mr. Cooper Smith. Ms. Berger, do you have anything additional to add?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Excellent job.
Is there a limit to how many that can be sold on this one?
In terms of the number
person?
of drinks, no, there's no limit on that.
For the number of drinks an individual can purchase, then they still have to comply with the liquor code and tips training and all of that, so they can't overserve, so.
Right.
Certainly can't consume 5,000 beer barrels at once.
Yeah, but that's their state limit, so yeah, that's,
That's a
yeah.
joke.
So, but this has had much, I guess, confusion. I think the owners thought that they did not have to get a county license to operate, to sell on premise. They could just use their state license. A rereading of that showed otherwise. This council issued a temporary license, or a temporary permit to them so they can keep on operating while this was being considered. And just like the former bill, this was allowed to die because we didn't have time to get the work session in place and to go ahead and move with it. And they had a temporary permit, so they were still able to continue operating with that temporary permit. Since it did not have an exit date on it, it would stay viable until the bill passed. So we're now at the juncture where I think we're ready to go ahead and be done with this as well. And I believe they have their temporary permit in hand. Have you heard from Mr. Smith on that, Mr. Cooper Smith?
They are still working on getting all the information together to submit for an interim license.
There. Did Mr. Smith give you any indication when they would get all that information together to have their, because I know the liquor board has been holding hearings.
That's correct, yeah. Let me pull up what he sent me.
And the reason why council specifically did that is because we did not want them operating without a license, but we did not want to interrupt their business activities, so the temporary permit was granted. But it was on their end to go ahead and do the filing and get before the liquor board to get it issued.
Right. They've been working on that. They had submitted something in April, but it was not complete. And he indicated that they should have everything together, the remainder, by the end of this week. And then once Zach puts all that together, he's going to send it over to us.
Well, please follow up with Mr. Smith, Zach Smith, the attorney for Eastern Shore Brewery, to make sure that that's done. It's somewhat troubling to me after all this time, again, because our boards and commissions were still meeting, that they haven't gotten that application completed. So let's make sure that they do that. Any other comment of council, Mr. Cooper Smith or Ms. Verrier on this? If not, yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, I got a message that it's hard to hear us, so if everybody could just make sure you try to talk as loud as I normally do.
Okay, we can hear everybody, but we're not hearing you, Mr. Parent.
My light is on.
Your light is on.
Wait and see. Do we need a test back there? Are you reading me? Is that better? Okay. So, again, I'll repeat myself. Any further questions of Ms. Cooper-Smith or Ms. Birdie at this time? Hearing none, the chair would ask for a show of hands on introduction of this matter by council, Madam Secretary. And you have given me a bill number of 1447. And I'm assuming we're going to do the public hearing on the same date as the 1446. Is that correct? Well, we have to set it for a work session as well. Do we have a work session date scheduled for this?
I believe Ms. Morris is still looking at one.
Are we convinced that we really need a work session on that? I think we've had that conversation before.
At this point, I'm willing to yield the work session if council so fit. I think we're just going to be us and ESG, but I don't want to be too presumptuous with that. As soon as we do that, we're going to have someone jumping up and down saying we consider their opinion. So
But we're gonna have a public
I would set it in very briefly and then be done with it, but that's my call. That's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have a public hearing, so people
Sure.
always have a chance to voice their opinion on it, and we don't have to vote, certainly that night. I think a public hearing is sufficient, in my opinion.
I'm open for council.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So, do you want to go ahead and keep us, do we have enough time to do it? We're going to go bypass the work session then, under the circumstances. This is somewhat of a special consideration, if you would. I think only one applicant really applies here. Will the July 14th date also be available for a public hearing on 1447?
Yes, that is the
Okay.
public hearing date.
Okay, so we're gonna put 1447 public hearing on July the 14th at 6:30 p.m. We'll do both of those the same day, and council has agreed to suspend or not have the work session on this matter. It is agreed upon. Okay. Next, council, we have another public hearing, and this is on the Community Development Block Grant, and we're going to get Ms. Morris in here.
And Andy, I think Frida was coming in.
Ms. Morris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Through the CARES Act, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development is going to open up another round of their community development block grant program, specifically to handle projects that prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus. It's only open to eligible jurisdictions. That means you have to have a county that's less than 200,000 people in size. We contacted each of the municipalities to see what needs they may have, and we did hear back from the town of St. Michael's, who put us in touch with the St. Michael's Community Center. They would like to expand their food support program, and they are seeking a grant funds in the amount of about $160,000, which would help them continue their community cafe program, a food bank coordinator program, and expand some of their food service. We also work in touch with Talbot County Public Schools, and for the summer, they would like to continue their summer snack and dinner program. This would be in addition to the food service that they are already providing through Sodexo. And we also heard from Upper Shore Aging, which operates the 2 senior centers here in Talbot County, and there has been an increased need for Meals on Wheels, as seniors have not been able to access the community center or the senior centers for meals. So they are requesting funding in the amount of about $115,000, which would provide meals for an additional 31 participants. And then lastly, we were in touch with Dr. Wadley with the Talbot County Health Department, and she has a proposal for a social home for seniors and disabled adults that I'll let Dr. Wadley speak to.
Dr. Wiley, good seeing you. How are you? The floor is yours.
So probably, you've heard me talk more than you want to hear about the senior care program. But in that program, we've done rather well combining programs and services to sort of get economies of scale. What we're finding with COVID is that a lot of those seniors that had family coming in or someone else, neighbor or whatever coming in, are not doing that now. And that's probably good because they're at a risk of bringing in to that individual. But another thing, when we found out that a category for this grant was also disabilities, one of our growing populations that we have not been able to do a great deal of help for because there's been no resources is the disabled, and the disabled that is below 65 years of age. And with our chronic disease rate, then there's more and more becoming disabled in their 50s and 60s. And so when you looked at our population figures and you saw that our estimates for in 2019 were 37,181 estimate for our population, and when you looked at 29.2% of that 65 and older, not all of those are below poverty, but even in the most conservative of estimates, when our total poverty level is 9.2%, and even if you said, well, we're twice what other counties are for the senior population, and you said only 9.2% are below poverty, then we've got a little over 10,000 that is 65 and over. So if you think you're only 500 are below the poverty level, and we've actually looked just a few years ago, it was 484, so that's about right. Then also, if you look at the disabled, you know that we really got, for low income of the disability and the seniors, about 2,000 individuals, okay? We know we serve a little over 200 a year. The senior care program allows you to serve seniors up to 2,800 a month. I think it's 2,900 now. We never get close to that figure. In fact, the majority of ours, about 80%, are below $1,500 a month. That's even below 125% of poverty. So we're finding more and more with the disabled that need help and the seniors. So that's the reason we put the program together. It's for 2 years, and a significant portion of it is sort of like we get for the senior program. It's for when there is no other resource available existing, but they still need a co-payment on medications or some help in the home to not go into nursing home or whatever. That's what those dollars are for. So we also put that in this. We've used some of existing staff because we do know we're going to have some cuts in the programs that we have now for seniors. Not a cut in the budget per se, but in the way the state is going to allow us to do exams. It's going to be about $37,000 less this next year. So this is a combination of using those staff, also getting part-time other staff to come in. And so for 2 years, that's what our budget is, but $157,000 of that is over the 2-year period for resources when there's no other existing resource for the seniors or the disabled.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wiley. Any questions of Dr. Wiley on her proposal for this grant? Okay. Council, this
I'm
is.
just thrilled that these resources are available.
Right,
And thank you for locating them.
Okay, this is a public hearing, council, on the Community Development Block Grant. You have in your Granicus the outline of these proposals. Ms. Morris did go through them as well. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant. Ms. Morris,
Yeah.
callers online?
Yes, so we do have callers online. I am going to start unmuting the callers, but we're noticing that some people have a lot of background noise on their phones. So if you have people in the background, if you could just try and keep a little bit quiet while others are speaking.
They can also mute themselves until they're ready to speak. I think it's *6 or whatever on their cell phones. So could we ask the callers to mute themselves if you're not speaking?
And to turn off the YouTube or whatever background is playing as well.
Yes, because that's about a 1 minute delay on that.
Callers, again, we are conducting a public hearing, and if you could please mute your telephone unless you would like to speak. And if you would like to speak, could you please announce your name and your address?
And they have to turn off the YouTube feed.
It worked. Okay, I'll take the first caller on the public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant. Caller, would you please identify yourself and your name and your address, and we'll take your comment at this time.
Okay, I'll be the first caller on the public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant. Caller, please identify yourself and your name and your address, and we'll take the comment at this time.
Callers, could you please turn off your computers if you are watching YouTube at the same time? Again, this is the last call for the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant.
Okay, I was giving time for the delay so they can hear you. It doesn't appear that we have anyone online who wish to give comment for the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant. This is regarding the COVID-19 funding. Council, unless there's an objection, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Okay, hearing on the public hearing is now closed, and we're going to continue on with our agenda items. Thank you very much, Dr. Wiley, for coming in. We appreciate your plan and helping out with this. Thank you. Council, next on your agenda, you have an introduction of administrative resolution, and I'm going to ask Madam Secretary to go ahead and read the title to that.
Administrative resolution authorizing Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, COVID-19 application for Talbot County on behalf of St. Michael's Community Center, Talbot County Health Department, Talbot County Public Schools, and Upper Shore Aging, Inc.
And these were the items that Ms. Morris just read to us. Ms. Morris, I'll turn it back over to you in case you have anything additional to add.
I do not have anything additional to add at this time. Thank you. The grant is due on June 12th. The public comments will be accepted until June 11th that year.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if there's no additional questions of Ms. Murray, I would ask for a show of hands for introduction of the resolution at this time. Madam Secretary, please notify council. As this is an administrative resolution, it can be moved to second reader at this time if any member of council wishes to do so, making it eligible for vote this evening. The chair would entertain a motion to move this to second reader.
Move to second reader.
Made
Motion.
by Mrs. Price, seconded by Mr. Lesher. Any comment or question on the motion? Hearing none on the matter to move it to second reader, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll for that, please?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Madam Secretary, would you please read the title of the bill again?
Administrative resolution.
I ask that so much be considered a reading.
Any objection to Mrs. Price's motion? Hearing none, the bill is now before the council for final vote. Any additional comment or question on the matter? Hearing none, this matter is now before, this administrative resolution is now before council for final vote. Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Thank you very much, council. Moving on, council, the next item on your agenda you see here was the outline to, as you know, we've been here at the YO Room, and listeners at home know for the last, but Ms. House, a large track how long we've been here now, 2 months. We've been trying to move back home, if you would, to the Bradley meeting room and observe the social distancing. Mr. Hollis had called me in, we did a walkthrough of the spacing earlier today, and it just did not feel that we were going to be able to do that and keep everyone at a safe distance. So we were asking to hold off on moving to the Bradley meeting room until July until we get some more things in place. We are working continuously with Brian Morris and his department regarding hand washing stations and spacing and those things. So at this time, we would not be moving back into the Bradley meeting room as we would hope. The spacing just did not work out when we did the walkthrough earlier today. And Mr. Hollis, I'll turn it over to you for any further comment on that.
No, to say I'm disappointed would be an understatement. The social separating and the need for the council not to be masked is just presenting a challenge in terms of your dais, in terms of the separation. So we are looking at some other venues that may allow us to have better connectivity for the public. You've seen some problems tonight. It is incredibly frustrating to continue to have these out here at the YO room. So we are looking at some other venues that may improve on that. So I am hopeful. I think it's a council decision, but I'm certainly going to be expecting to make a recommendation to you about another location that offers better services for the public in terms of their viewing and commenting to you all during public hearings. Hopefully at your next meeting, if not before.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to get the public, this, as you heard, this is just not working as we would have hoped. We're dropping calls, there's a lot of reverb and so forth. So we're trying to get a location where we can get people into the building with us, keep them spaced out appropriately, and then have the technology where they can view the proceedings in real time. So we just want to keep you guys updated that we are working on it. It's just trying to balance the technology and the health factors all at the same time. It's presenting a challenge. So I think we're going to try to reach out to Kelly Griffiths of the school system and see if there's any spacing over there we could use as well, because they already have the grants hooked up.
So there's still, you're feeling that there's still not enough room for just us like this without any public at the Bailey room?
We were trying to bring the public in a limited amount as well.
But would it work without the public for the time being if we were just there?
It would be the same setup you had last time you were in the Bradley room, down on the actual floor at separate tables, yes.
It was very crowded, congested. The idea is to get the public back with us, and that's what we're trying to shoot for. So we won't have to worry about this calling in, and we have a couple pretty interesting public hearings coming up. The Lakeside to track development, I know there's going to be a lot of public interest in that. Bill 1446 that we just introduced, I know there's going to be a lot of public comment for that. So rather than try to do this thing by phone, we're trying to figure a way to get people in the room. Even if you have to move people in shifts, you know, you bring 20 in, let them give comment, and then they would have to shift out and bring 20 more in if we can't get everybody in one space. But at least it will allow them to do it in real time and face-to-face comment. So we're trying to be sensitive to the fact that we don't want to disenfranchise anybody who are losing their call or they're breaking up and those kind of things. So that's the struggle. That's really the struggle right now.
So, Mr. Callahan, I was going to discuss on under county manager, but we'll just talk about it now. Part of the focus was my plan is to bring the majority of the county, not the majority, all of county staff back on this coming Monday, June 15, those that aren't already working in their existing offices. Tied with that, on the 17th, we'll be reopening to the public as well. I was very focused on trying, since we're opening county government to the public, that we should be opening the county council meetings to the public as well. We're certainly happy to take direction from you, but that was the focus of trying to find the ability to bring people in as well as the council into the same room.
Well, I think it's important that we have the public in, and you know, while we've tried to do some limited public hearings here, even public comment, I mean, we see what happens. And when we've had public comment at the end of the meetings, it's incredibly difficult for us. You can't hear us, we can't hear you. There's the delays. So, you know, if you are going to make, you know, whether you're planning to make comments tonight or in 2 weeks or whatever, if it's not right now in front of us on the agenda, you know, sit tight, send us the email. We're definitely reading all of those, and that's a lot easier for us to understand right now. We're like squinting to hear what you're saying when you do speak. So if it's something that can wait, you know, 2 weeks, I don't think there's anything else on our agenda tonight that we're making any decisions on other than county manager's report. You know, we're not making any decisions on anything. So if what you know, we're planning to say, you know, can hold off till the next meeting or so, it's going to be a lot easier for us to hear you, because it is important for us to hear you. And not just hear you, but see you, because that makes a difference. Being in the same room with somebody is different than just reading, sometimes just reading a text message or hearing something over the phone. We want to be in person with you as up close as we possibly can.
And just for the public and the council's awareness, we have worked with professional consultants in terms of trying to make the wider room be more conducive to this. To your council meetings, we are just doing it at the staff level. We're running people that have greater expertise than us, and we just aren't at the level that we need to be for the citizens of the county.
And I just want to make sure that echo that there, I have seen countless IT folks in here trying to, tonight and previous meetings, we're doing everything we can. Unfortunately, there's a lot of user error on the community part when they're calling in, and that causes some problems as well. But yes, I greatly appreciate your efforts to get us back into a room in front of everyone so that we can just work the best way that we know how. Technology doesn't always fit what we need it to do.
There you go. So with that, Mr. Hollis, I'm going to throw it back to you for county manager's report.
Sure. So we have Mr. Clark here, so why don't we start with Department of Public Works. Mr. Clark actually has 3 items all dealing with repairs at the Royal Oak Pump Station, Region 2 Wastewater Treatment Plant, and Region 5 Wastewater Treatment Plant down in Tillman. The first council is a request from Mr. Clark for emergency repairs in the amount of $15,000 for the Royal Oak Pump Station to help electric service. Mr. Clark, I don't know if you want to be any specific about that. The charge will go to the sanitary district.
It would actually go to the sanitary district for Royal Oak, as well as the Unionville, Tismos, Copperville sanitary district. We actually have that station. We have 2 pumps. Those pumps basically pump the flows from Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue, as well as Unionville, Tismos, and Copperville to the St. Michael system. And we had one go into fault. A pump went into fault mode, so we ended up having Hills Electric come out and pull that pump. And we got a high price of $15,000 to rebuild that pump.
So council, this is one of the rare instances where it was an emergency repair, so it's already been approved by me, so we're coming to you after the fact.
Appreciate that, Mr. Howes. Any further comment or question, Mr. Clark, on the repair of the pump? Okay. Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to go ahead and pay the bill, $15,000 to Hill Electric.
So moved to approve.
Moved by Mr. DeVillio, second by Mr. Lesher. Any further comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Okay.
Council, next is a request for repairs at the Region 2 St. Michael's wastewater treatment plant. And this work is also being done by Hills Electric. The amount is $41,408.30. Again, charged to the Region 2 wastewater treatment plant repair and maintenance line item. Mr. Clark?
This is our influent pump station. We have 3 pumps, and ultimately actually the check valve had failed on us. So we ended up, we're not only repairing one of the pumps, but also buying a new pump and having a new pump installed, as well as a new check valve. We actually have to have 3 pumps in service, especially during wet weather events, so we can keep up with the flow rates. If we don't, our collection system will surcharge, and then we can potentially lose wastewater out of the collection system during a heavy rain event.
And the price we supply, I had 2 different totals here. Is it 41,408? 41,408?
Yes.
Is that the total?
Yes.
Chair would entertain a motion for $41,408.30, and this is going to go to Hills Electric for pump repair.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Lesher.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Price. Any further comment, question? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Last item for Mr. Clark is repair at the Region 5 Tillman wastewater treatment plant regarding the water disinfection system. That's in the amount of $17,653.15.
Mr. Clark.
And this basically is associated with our water well and water system, that we need the water for our disinfection, chlorine disinfection, as we disinfect the wastewater as it goes out in the Chesapeake Bay. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that we had to have done immediately, and if we didn't have this upgraded, we would have been violating our permit. One advantage is we do have is that we do batch feed at the San Tillman plant, so we were able to basically pump the wastewater out and lower our pond levels, and then that allowed us to get in and repair the well, and as well as the water system and get it back online.
Any other questions, Mr. Clark, on this? Chair entertain a motion for payment to Shanahan Well Company in the amount of $17,653.15 for well water repair.
I move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Lesher.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Price. Any further comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Council, we annually make a request to you to approve the transfer of the, in this case, the 2020 housing bond allocation from the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. It's in the amount of $1,358,574. They use our money to issue bonds to fund housing programs, low-interest loans for mortgages, and mortgage credit certificates. We return that money back to DHCD. They issue it on our behalf. There are expenses and staff requirements involved with that, so it's easier to have them do it for us.
And one day we're going to have our own housing program that we're going to use this money for. That is my ultimate dream. But nonetheless.
Make a motion to turn it back to
thank you
Maryland
very much.
Department of Housing and Community Development, housing
Price.
bond allocation.
Second by Mr. Lesher. Any further comment? Question? Okay. Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Board appointments for the golf board. We're requesting the appointment of Barry Manger to the board.
Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
By Mr. Callahan.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeVillio. Further comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio,
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Talbot Family Network, we're requesting the appointment of Chief Anthony Smith, St. Michael's Police Department, and the reappointment of Cindy Green, Department of Corrections, Estella Ramirez, Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center, Jasmine Paxson of Talbot Mentors, Janine Beasley, Midshore Behavioral Health, Marlene Thomas, Critchlow Adkins, and Pamela Gillette of the University of Maryland Extension Office.
Is there a motion for these members on the Talbot Family Network Board?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. DeVillio, second by Mr. Callahan. Any further comment, discussion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
That hasn't happened in some
I
time.
know. I've been doing so well.
Several months where she was rolling it out.
So Council, I preempted myself, but just once again for the public's information in particular, county staff, all that have been out working remotely or reduced staffing in departments, so we're all reporting back to work on Monday the 15th. The public will be back in on Monday the 17th. There is a 3-page plan put together that I authored, that has been reviewed by the health officer, Clay Stant with Emergency Services, and the council president. They've all looked at this and signed off on it. They've also signed off on the reopening, which was part of your executive declaration. The vast majority of this information about how to reopen pertains to county employees. There is a small portion that pertains to the public. We will be getting that information out in a press release, making sure we post signs. Part of it's a learning experience, but I think we're in pretty good shape. We tried to keep it pretty simple, but we are aware, obviously, that people still have ongoing and legitimate concerns about COVID-19. There is a pandemic, and we're going to do our best to make sure our employees and the public are safely returned to our county office buildings. So thank you.
One question. So when we reopen to the public, when it comes to permits and inspections, so they'll be allowed to go in. So
They'll be physically able to come in, yes. We've always been open, but as I always like to say, but absolutely, physical visits on the 17th.
So will we be able, on the other side, will we be able to go in that side on planning and zoning, and then will we be able to go to the health department?
So, yes, any area you were able to enter prior to the pandemic will be reopened again.
I got you.
Now, again, there'll be protocols, very limited.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just getting a lot of calls. Can you actually physically
But
go in?
one last point, Mr. Callahan,
Yeah.
it's a very important one that you raised. So Bay Street has several entrances.
Yes.
We need to look at consolidating that, which I think is part of what you're
Yes,
talking
sir.
about.
Yes.
We are not ready to do that because some physical improvements need to be in place as well, but we will be working on that, yes, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, good questions, Doc. But I want to again extend my gratitude to Brian Moore and his team. Brian has a small staff, as we know, and to get all this together, he had to buy materials, he had to buy supplies to make sure that we had things in place to open back up again and do so in a safe manner. So I just want to just tip my hat to him. I know he's not here, but Mr. Hawes, if you could pass that on to him, my gratitude for getting this all together. You see some of the examples out here in the lobby area here at the YO room, or here at the community center, I should say, where he's already put up the screening in place. So Brian, kudos to you, great job. We certainly appreciate it. Yeah, we're welcoming the public back into our buildings. Of course, face masking are going to be required, and that's really a town of Easton ordinance that the mayor put out several weeks ago, and also social distancing. And we will have, I believe, sanitation stations with hand sanitizer for person to use as well. So soft opening is a good approach to give the staff a couple of days just to get the feel of it, how it's going to operate. One thing that Mr. Hollis didn't mention is that we will be requiring staff to have temperature checks each morning. So they would, when they come on to work, they would have to check their temperature and record that temperature and put it into a folder for record-keeping purposes. I will also be asking council, when we return back to wherever we're going to return back to and be in close quarters with one another, whether it be the Bradley room or another location, I will be asking that we also show a good example and temper check ourselves as well. I think we need to do that just to make sure that we are healthy to be around each other. I take that very, very seriously, as you know. So when we do leave this area, and if we have to go back to the Bradley Runway, that's the only place we can figure this thing out. We have to do it. Let's temperature check each other. Let's wear our masks, and let's keep each other as safe as we possibly can, and show a good example of what we're trying to do. So, thank you, Ms. Hollis, for that, and welcome public back on the 17th. Welcome staff back on the 15th. And with that, Ms. Morris, I'm going to ask for. I'm going to try this again. The public comment portion of our agenda. Is anyone online?
We do have 9 callers on the line. I would ask again that people turn their phones on mute until they're ready to speak.
Okay. According to Ms. Morris, we have 9 callers online. This is a public comment portion. If you're speaking for yourself, please let us know. We'll give you 3 minutes. Mr. Callahan will pass the clock. If you're speaking for a group, please let us know what group or entity you're speaking for. We'll give you 5 minutes on the clock.
Isn't public comment just personal, though? It's not really a public hearing with a group.
That is true, Mrs. Price, and so we'll set that 3 minutes then. Thanks for the correction on that. So we'll set that 3 minutes, Mr. Callahan, because this is public comment and not actually a public hearing. So again, the ground rules are: give us your name, your address. We'll give you 3 minutes on the clock, and I'll take the first caller now. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Rubenstein. I'm in Trapp, Maryland, on Chancellor Point Road.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council tonight. I'm down here in Trapp, and we've been always drawn to the true-sensitive community in Talbot County that really prides itself for togetherness. And this county has made incredible progress in terms of recognizing the reality of its difficult history by honoring Frederick Douglass on the courthouse grounds. But we come here as an ally of Black Lives Matter to recommend the immediate removal of the Confederate Talbot Boys monument that includes the Confederate battle flag that sits next door to the abolitionist and American hero Douglass. History is important to remember so we can teach our future generations, but this isn't history. This monument honors slavery, racism, and white supremacy, and was created as white supremacy propaganda during the Jim Crow era in 1916. This is an opportunity for the county to act and take a stand as they recognize the racial injustice that is happening in our country and in the county, and that recognizing people who believe and fought for slavery is only a part of the problem. This is an opportunity for Talbot County to be a part of the solution. The former capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia, has even acted by removing their Confederate monuments on both state and city lands, and even the U.S. Navy and Marine has banned the Confederate flag, and now it is time for Talbot County to do the same. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I stand in solidarity with the Black people in this county and all over the world fighting against racial injustice. And I'm really hopeful and pray that you as council members will do what's best for our Black residents in the world and make the decision to remove the monument and flag from our courthouse grounds immediately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for calling, Mrs. Rubenstein. Council, we'll hear the next caller, please.
Hi, this is Keisha Hayes calling in for public comment. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. I live at 8671 Camac Street in Easton, Maryland. And I certainly do echo what the caller just said as well. However, I'm calling on another matter. So as you all know, an email was sent to Councilman Pack, and I want to thank Councilman Pack, Councilman Risher, Councilman Callahan, and Councilman DeVillio for returning my call last week in regards to my proposal to create a racial equity task force in Talbot County. I'm a little disappointed, Councilwoman Laura Price, that you did not return my call, but that's fine. You know, I really want to let you guys know that it is very important that the county council stand up for racial inequality across the board in Talbot County. We know that 83.2% of Talbot County is white, 12.9% is Black, and 6.8% is Hispanic. And there is systemic racism across the board, not only in government, but in our community. And so that was really the premise behind proposing the task force, and it's disappointing to see that Councilman Pack did not let this initiative go forward. So with that, I want you guys to look around the room right now and look at each other. There's no one in that room that looks like me. And I'm talking about a Black female. And for that reason, that is why I wanted us to start the communication in regards to racial inequity in Talbot County. So I hope you will consider working with me and Mr. Dan Watson on the Talbot Coalition Against Racism to forward the communication and continue the communication in regards to racism in Talbot County. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Steve. Council, we'll hear the next caller.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Kenyatta Curry. I'm from Caroline County, Maryland, but spent most of my time growing up in Talbot County. First, I would like to acknowledge and honor George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Anton Black, and the many other Black Americans that have lost their lives to police violence. Frederick Douglass, famous abolitionist and skilled writer, was born into slavery in Talbot County. Talbot County has no trouble honoring Douglass, but at the same time uphold the racist Talbot Boys Confederate statue on the courthouse green. It is insulting to the legacy of Frederick Douglass to have these two statues stand side by side. This is absolutely unforgivable and must be changed immediately. The Talbot Boys statue has never been ethical. Shame on Talbot County to let stand this monument that honors 84 racist soldiers that defended the right of Southern whites to own Black Americans as property. The defense of the statue is an absolute defense of overt and systemic racism. As Comptroller Peter Francho pointed out in a recent statement, the Talbot Boys statue is the last Confederate statue still standing in Maryland. There is no reason for Talbot County to protect and uphold this statue. Talbot County should honor everyone. I'm embarrassed to say I'm from the Eastern Shore because of things like the Talbot Boys statue. There is no reason we should be 50 years behind the rest of Maryland. I demand the council members take a step towards the future and remove the abhorrent statue. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carey.
Mr. Pack, may I have a point of order?
Yes.
Callers should be from Talbot County.
I think she said she moved to Talbot
No,
County.
she has spent time here, but she said she's from Caroline County. So I just think that it's more appropriate that any public comment and emails, they need to identify where they're from, just so that we are aware. And this is for Talbot County citizens, at least in my opinion.
Very well noted. I thought I heard her say that she had moved to Talbot County, but I may have been mistaken. The council will take the next caller. Please give us your name and address so that we can make sure that you are calling from within the county, please. Next caller.
Yes, this is Keith Watts. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. 5800 Tillman Beach Drive in Tillman Island, Maryland. And I'm going to keep my powder dry as far as the short-term rental issues are concerned, because I think that's probably better addressed since we're having a public hearing that's coming up. As to the most immediate comment that was just made about people being in Talbot County, I believe that we have people in executive positions who do not live in Talbot County. So it's the pot calling the kettle you know what to raise that issue. Especially in light of the fact that the caller was making a comment based on the death of George Floyd. And if only people in Talbot County count, then maybe that statue should be pulled down, but it should be pulled down for all Americans, not just for people who live in Talbot County. I am so tired of the us and them, and the people who live in Talbot and the people who don't. They are citizens of the United States of America. They are people who come to Talbot County to spend their tax dollars and their tourist dollars. They benefit all of the citizens of Talbot County, they benefit the citizens of Maryland, and they benefit the citizens of the United States. If there's going to be an us and them, then I'm with them. The unmitigated nerve to distinguish, if you want people to be voting, then they'll start registering to vote, and we'll make sure that sort of foreigner's sentiment is stamped out. Black lives do matter. And they're as much matter as any person sitting in that room, as any person sitting in that, as a council member, as anyone who lives in Talbot County or who doesn't live in Talbot County. The idea that we are not there with open arms for people is repugnant to me. And it should be repugnant to you as public servants. As I said, I'll keep my powder dry for the upcoming SDR proposals. Everyone in the council pretty much knows where I stand. And the other 10 people sitting in my living room with me, who I will not identify, nor give you their addresses, but I think that they pretty much agree with me too. And I thank you for your time. I know these are difficult times, but to engage in that sort of ad hominem attack and pettiness, quite frankly, it's just petty, is unforgivable. You should be leaders of healing, not of division and separation. And I know that most of you sitting there are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the call, Mr. Brown.
I am going to
Certainly
clarify.
appreciate it.
I am going to clarify for a moment because we are elected for the Talbot County citizens, and this forum is to hear from the people who live in Talbot County. It doesn't mean that we don't care what they think, and they're welcome to do that. But in this forum, I believe that we've always asked for a name and address, and these forums for as many, 10 years I've been here, have been for Talbot County citizens to speak on. They are the ones who elect us here. It is not about us and them at all.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Price. Council, we'll hear the next caller.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, it's Laura Carney, 7236 Travelers Rest Circle in Easton. Just a short clip because in regards to the short-term rentals, I know that it was really hard for everybody to hear tonight, and I hope that the version of the in and out, I mean, I couldn't hear most of it when you were discussing the different changes in the legislation coming up. But there's some things that I think Mary Kay had mentioned in regards to the additional health requirements or health office requirements that homeowners need to go through. And I think what we had heard in the past, I think some of those things have been changed. And I just want to make sure that we're all clear and on the same page. As to some of the benefits that you all were trying to do in the changes being made. But I think then there were some other things that were tweaked that we weren't aware of that have made it a little bit more cumbersome. So I just, in that regard, want to make sure that moving forward, we are lessening the work on everybody, making it more simple and just, easier. So that's all I have to say. I think we'll pick it up in the next couple of weeks. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for calling, Ms. Carney, and for anyone listening, the draft of the Bill 1446, you can find that on the county website. So if anyone's interested in what Ms. Brady was referencing during her comments earlier today, please go to the county website. You can find Bill 1446 there. Council, we have the next caller. Yes, Council, we have the next caller.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Emily Thompson. I apologize if you have to hear us, but I think it's important that you hear this now, and if no action is taken, we can come back in person at a later date. Earlier this week, I sent you all an email stating why I think that the Talbot Boy statue should be taken down. So instead of repeating these points, which I'm sure you all read over, I'll just say this. There will be future county council members in Talbot that will take this statue down. There is a will to do this in this county, and the voters will remember. We can wait around all we want, but you have an opportunity now to stand for something and to listen to Black voices. This is not a national or statewide issue that you can argue away endlessly anymore. Our community is done memorializing racists, nonetheless memorializing them on our courthouse lawns. And I guess the question now is, are you going to wait and let your successors do the work that you should have done years ago, or are you going to take action? Personally, I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed to be on the county council as the face of Talbot County right now. All around Maryland, all around the country, we have seen actual leadership, not only in taking down these Confederate monuments, but taking further tangible action to be anti-racist. This right now is the least you can do. Show your community members that you do not sympathize with rebels against the United States and white supremacists. Show your community you have the nerve to do something. It is not only your legacy, it is the legacy of my home. It is the legacy of the Eastern Shore and the legacy of our community. So please take this moment and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Thank you for writing and for calling in. Council, we'll get the next caller. Council, we'll hear the next caller. Mr. Morris, we still have callers online. I have 6. I believe you said we had 9, so maybe there's 3 more callers out there. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself and let us hear from you, caller.
They could just be listening.
I know there's a delay, so I'm trying to wait. Council, we'll hear you, caller.
This is Jody Hardesty.
Yes, Jody, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I do want to reiterate what Mr. Watts had said, that there absolutely is an attitude of an us and them that permeates Talbot County. And while I had something prepared to address the short-term rental licensing issue, I understand that we can examine that more closely, and I've actually sent you my comments in an email. So rather than saying them, just to press home the point that I think this is an important topic that needs to be addressed by you as the council and by others within the county government. We've sat through review board hearings where the citizens that were coming forward out of concerns that their neighbors were renting their houses did in fact state that they were afraid of foreigners coming in and renting houses near them. There's absolutely an attitude of the us and them, despite Ms. Price's assertion that there isn't. And I want to make sure that we, as other citizens, stamp that out as much as possible and welcome anyone and everyone to Talbot County who wishes to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jody. Next caller, council, we'll hear you now. Next caller, council, we'll hear you now. You turn down your phone, please, your radio.
We're not flush the toilet.
Yes, caller, we'll hear from you now. We're here for the next caller now. Is anyone there?
It sounds as though people are now hanging up, Mr.
Okay. Council, we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 7 callers for public comment. We certainly appreciate all of those persons who took the time to call in for public comment. This is what this is about. For this council to hear from you, so we certainly appreciate you taking the time to stay with us and call in. Again, we know that it's somewhat cumbersome but we're trying to do the best we can with the technology that we do have. And we want to thank the staff that we have here, the technicians that we have here with us. They've been here since I think 4:30 today, getting things set up and running mic tests. So we certainly want to salute them and thank them very much for all that they've done to get us up and running today. So with that being said, is there a caller there?
Hello? Can you hear me?
We're going to move out of public comment. Does that mean?
I think he said, can you hear me?
Is there a caller there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead. You're right at the wire.
What?
You're right at the wire. Go ahead.
Okay, hi there. I'm in Maryland here, and just wanted to say I'm absolutely outraged.
Sir, can we get your name, please, sir?
Yeah, sorry. I'm Ari Rubenstein, and I'm in Detroit, Maryland. I'm Chancellor Point Road.
Okay.
I just want to say I'm extremely outraged and disappointed in Talbot County, Easton, Maryland. They haven't taken this symbol of Confederacy and slavery and white supremacy and racism. I'm surprised that we're at this point still. And honestly, I don't understand how you guys think black people in Easton, Maryland can feel safe seeing that statue every single day going in Easton. Think about that. I mean, I personally cannot, I can't specifically know how that feels because I'm a white person, but I can't believe this is still a question, and you guys just need to think about what side of history you want to be on. As someone said before, this is going to happen in the future. We're going to eradicate these systems of oppression in the future. And you guys just have to think about what you're going to say to the people after you when they ask you, why didn't you do this? You need to be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levi. Okay, is there anyone else there for public comment? We don't want to miss anyone. We want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity to speak and to be heard. We know there's a delay. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the lines for public comment then. Again, we certainly appreciate everyone who called in at this time. Council, the last matter we have before us is council comment. I'll share with you all some comments that I want to give tonight, but before I do so, I want to open it up for you all. And Mr. Villio, can I go to you first for any council comments?
No.
Okay. He said no. I said okay. That was quick.
Thanks for. There's a lot to say, a lot that I feel, but few words that I know how to put out correctly for what I want to say. For me, I've learned a lot over the last week. I've spoken with many different people. I attended the rally on Saturday, which was very peaceful, very civil, which I'm thankful for, which is the civility that I love about Talbot County. We've received a lot of correspondence about the Talbot Boys statue. I've been told things of tear it down, I've been told remove it, I've been told to fix it, to complete it, to add the other names to it. I've been told to add another statue next to it. I've been given lots of different recommendations, lots of different ways of correcting, of changing history. I've done a lot of research and looked around at different monuments around us at what Chestertown has laid out, how similar in style that can be to what we have, which is a very fair one with both sides on it. It's a great memorial. If you haven't been to Chestertown, I'd recommend checking out all of them. a lot of these phone calls that I had, a lot of the discussions, the emails have come in just over the last couple of days. We could have taken executive action tonight, I assume, to make a decision. Most properly, it would have been put on the agenda, which would have been Friday by noon. And I don't have a plan of what to do with any of those options, whether just leave it in rubble in the yard or complete it or what, or move it, or who would even accept it. This is obviously a very large issue for the community. There's a lot of respect that I am paying and that I owe to our current council members who've been through it 1 or 2 times already with hearings where they've received a lot of information. And they've made decisions in the past based off of what they've heard and felt from the community. So at this time, there is a change, and I am enjoying what I'm seeing. I'm from Talbot County. You know, my father was a surgeon in Talbot County. My mother was a teacher here. I grew up an incredible lifestyle. I knew everybody treated me great. You know, I was very fortunate. Then when I ran for office, all of a sudden I came across people that absolutely despised me without even knowing who I was. And that can't even relate at all to what an African American has to go through. And I recognize that. So you're going to continue to hear a lot about this Talbot Boy statue, obviously from this council. Many of us plan to address it, some tonight. So nobody's sitting back on this. This is definitely a time for change, in my opinion. And you know, with Juneteenth coming up here next week, this is a significant time in my life, and I'm at 39 years. I'm very excited for it. So we'll see how things go, and next time I'll probably prepare a speech.
You did fine, Mr. Sibilio. Mr. Lesher, can I go across the room over to you and comment?
Thank you, Mr. Pack. This Saturday, I attended a large gathering also on the courthouse square protesting police abuse and the killings of African Americans across America by those sworn to protect us. This council approved a public assembly permit for that event, as did the town of Easton. And I want to thank the organizers and participants for, as Mr. DeValio characterized it, a peaceful, a civil, I'll add a diverse and nonviolent demonstration. I also want to compliment the Easton Police Department for its preparation and communications to keep the peace, and our own Talbot County Sheriff for his presence and his intervention. I was pleased to see a number of my colleagues on this council present, handing out water, and staff present at that event and the following day in St. Michael's. I was questioned about the wisdom of the council's decision to grant the public assembly permit, and I'm elated, but not at all surprised, that the fears of violence and outside infiltrators were completely unsubstantiated. I found in that event particularly moving the protracted moment of silence. One of the largest groups that I've ever seen on the courthouse square on bended knee, keeping silence, to the extent that we could hear the birds singing. This moment silently yet powerfully spoke volumes about our community, and I'm proud of that community. On Saturday, we, as part of that, heard a call to revisit the Talbot Boys Monument. We've heard more tonight. We've received the emails. We've seen the social media. We've seen it in the newspaper. To revisit the Talbot Boys Monument and its appropriateness on the courthouse square. Since that time, we've received all this additional, most of them calling for its removal. We are reminded of the history of this monument, how it was erected not in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, more than half a century later, at a height of overt racial discrimination in America. Its sponsors pointedly excluded memorializing Union soldiers from Talbot County, some of whom were black. They wanted people to know, regardless of who lost the war, who was now in charge in Talbot County. And it included those who fought against their native Maryland and against the United States. We've been told how this monument gives a knot in the stomach of some of our neighbors as they must walk by this powerful symbol of racism on their way into the halls of justice that is our county courthouse. However we revisit this discussion today, we must. We cannot simply ignore this issue. The time has come to remove it.
Thank you, Mr. Lush. Ms. Price, I'm going to move over to you for comment, if you wish.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking the great citizens of Easton and Talbot County for their positive, peaceful responses over the last several weeks. We have witnessed a tragedy, and it is a tragedy when anyone's life is senselessly taken away. What I am thankful for is the unique community that we live in, and that we can all exist beyond the hatred that many other towns and cities have demonstrated. The council has to thank our law enforcement departments for staying on the job, for putting the needs of others above themselves, for their unyielding empathy and positive support during this time. Law enforcement, emergency management, our medical teams have risen to the unbelievable challenge that we all face. To those in the law enforcement profession, you have blazed a path on how other law enforcement persons can and should handle themselves. Your attention to diversity, Your attention to diversity and inclusiveness must be commended. My heart goes out to Andy, Clay, Frida, and the emergency management operations team and all the county staff for their tireless commitment to the operation of the county during these unprecedented times of the pandemic and the senseless taking of a life. We mourn for those who lost their lives needlessly, who have experienced the stress and uncertainty of losing their businesses or their livelihoods, and those who continue to struggle to remain in business. We can be thankful for our citizens' thoughtful and caring response to this perfect storm of events, and we can pray that the tide may be moving in the right direction on some of these difficult events. Our focus should be on the well-being and the betterment of our families here in Talbot County. Our duty as your elected officials is to express your needs. Let us focus our energies on helping the individuals in need and position the county to best weather and conquer these seemingly insurmountable challenges. You have placed your faith in us to lead, and we will do so and have done so without prejudice or self-gratification. And this is not the time to grandstand for personal gain or to give in to emotion or undue pressures, but to put the well-being of our neighbors first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Price. Mr. Vice President, I'll turn to you, sir.
Good. Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, I'm like Mr. DeVillio. I'm just, I'm just going to comment on some things that are on my heart and my gut. There probably isn't a person on the planet that looked at that TV screen and felt horrified. I sure did. I didn't know really what to make of it other than just a senseless person that was supposed to be helping the public. And it turned out that obviously this person here has some real problems. And not only that, I was horrified with the people standing beside him. That I just couldn't imagine. And really what brought to my mind is that my experience, I've been in the, given what I am as a firefighter, and when I looked at that, I've been in the fire department for 36 years, and I'm there to help people, save people, and I couldn't imagine being in that moment and not trying to help get that officer off of him. I couldn't imagine that. So when we train, and I thought about this, when you train, when you train to save a person, or you protect a person, when you save them, you don't see color. You see action to help somebody. And that's what struck me. We definitely are at a moment where there needs to be a huge amount of training and a process of training, because my mind works to save that person and not brutalize and treat that person in a bad manner or kill them. You know, my mind isn't that way. There is time, I agree. It's a moment in time right now that there is going to be some change. I'm okay with that. I'm for that. We have lived in a phenomenal community. All my heritage is here in this community. There's not many people that I haven't worked with, worked for, helped, been on hundreds and thousands of fire calls to help people. And now it's the time maybe to go to another level and a next step. Obviously, this statue it is you know, been a source of talk for many years. Maybe there is some options that we can look at, but I'd like to have some time to think about it myself. I don't want, you know, this whole thing has happened in the last couple of weeks, so I really want to be able to do the right thing, and the right thing for Talbot County. And you know, I really appreciate, you know, I was at the rally too, and I was handing out water, and I was looking and listening to people, very calm, very, you know, I commend the Joe's men, the sheriff's department, and the mayor, and the chief on doing a great job and letting people vent what they want to vent. Okay, and that's what it's all about. It's all about people expressing their views. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is one thing I do have a problem with. There's one thing that that it's a sore subject. If you have a sign, I'd like for you to take it back with you and not leave hundreds of signs. It would, you know, it causes disruption. It's a little bit more respect, I think. If you bring something, you take it with you. So that's just my view. I know it was a touchy subject when it come to all these signs and laying them on the ground and stuff. But you know, hey, we got through it. It was very peaceful. I'm like you, Mr. Lesher. You could, you know, there was a moment in time where everybody was together that day. Everybody. Everybody was on the really same wavelength. But I'm glad I went. I'm glad I experienced it, because a lot of people are afraid of that kind of stuff. They really are. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's if anything, it's an enjoyment with everybody gathering and thinking for that moment for people that have been, you know, in a bad situation and been mistreated. So I think we need to think through this as a council. I think Mr. Pack, the president, I really want to commend you with a lot of things that in creating maybe some new opportunities for us, and looking at this in a different perspective. So I really appreciate the callers calling in and voicing their opinions. I don't take any of that personal whatsoever. Never will, never did, and never will. Because everybody, that's why we have these comments. And that's why we live in a society where you can say your piece and move on. And that's why I feel like it was a great moment in time, Saturday, and there might be more, you know? And the other thing, the last thing I want to say is I really appreciate the people that are reaching out and emailing me. I'll do my best to acknowledge you. You take the time to write the emails. I try to make the time to acknowledge you that you have written me. So with that being said, I really appreciate the last couple weeks of people contacting me. And you're welcome to call me to talk through this with me, and any ideas that might be on your mind. I'm open to it, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I have a few remarks here, so I'm going to ask the council to bear with me as I read through this. Normally, I do not prepare formal written comments, full council comment, but this time I felt a deep need to do that. This has weighed on me these past several days, watching the news, watching the image of Mr. Floyd's final moments upon this earth, has weighed on me very, very heavily. We attended the rally, I would say the demonstration on Saturday. Several council members were there. We heard, we saw for ourselves the peaceful demonstration of these young people. And I will tip my hat to the young people who organized this for the manner in which they conducted themselves. There was no damage of public property. Sure, they may have left a few signs behind around the courthouse lawn, but there was no great concern to me. We got those picked up by the end of the day. So let me try to get through this as best I can. It's hard for me to imagine that any reasonable person could have viewed the arrest of George Floyd and not be appalled by the actions of the Minneapolis Police Department. For nearly 9 minutes, one assailant placed his knee at the base of Mr. Floyd's neck, including 2 minutes and 53 seconds when he was non-responsive, while another knelt on his back and rib cage. And if there wasn't enough force to restrain Mr. Floyd, a third assailant knelt on the back of his legs. While these three crushed Mr. Floyd into the city street, a fourth compliant stood over them and looked up and down the street as if he was waiting on an approaching bus. Watching this behavior from people who are supposed to serve and protect the public is so frustrating and upsetting to me. I have asked who is at the gate to allow individuals who have so little regard for human dignity to become sworn officers. I cannot help screaming there must have been other incidents, there must have been other citizen complaints, there must have been red flags to alert the command staff that they had a loose cannon in their hands. But often when we see these type of abuse of powers, it is systemic of a deeper problem in the hiring and psychological evaluation of prospective employees. Police training tactics focus more on how to inflict bodily harm and restrain an individual, and less emphasis on how to de-escalate and evaluate the situation from a mental health or public safety approach, and not as a paramilitary action. I have often said that there are bad police officers just as there are bad auto mechanics. After 25 years in public safety, I have worked with many good and decent officers, dedicated men and women who work with the community and not against it. Officers who work 10-hour shift and then go out and coach football until sunset. Officers who will load a group of kids in a bus and take them to an amusement park or to a baseball game. Yes, just like there are good HVAC technicians, there are good police officers. But unlike an auto mechanic or technician, officers have a sworn duty to protect all the people, regardless of race or gender. When we see the death of George Floyd, it brings back images of Eric Garner and Tamir Rice and Breonna Taylor, to name just a few black men and women who were killed by police officers. The name of the city may change, but the characters do not. White male police officers assaulting and killing unarmed black citizens. This nation has recently experienced 2 public health emergencies as we continue to deal with the opioid and coronavirus epidemics. But police brutality against the African American community has been a public health crisis for decades. There has not been a national movement to address the problem. The federal government has allocated millions of taxpayer dollars, and rightly so, to stop the death toll attributed to opioid abuse and the deadly COVID-19. But there must be an equal urgency to address police brutality as a national health crisis. Several states, including Maryland, have recently passed the Justice Reinvestment legislation to defund correctional institutions and reinvest those dollars into social economic programs to help train citizens for employment in the community and not behind prison bars. An equal commitment from legislators must be undertaken to stop the spread of black deaths at the hands of people who are sworn to protect them. I have been asked recently about Talbot County's commitment to racial diversity and whether a task force needs to be created. Let me say first, I am proud of the county's record on fair and equitable hiring and the promotion of minority candidates. County staff, under the direction of the county manager, has engaged in cultural competency training in 2014 with the Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center. In FY17 and FY18, the county funded the Cultural Competency Strategic Plan facilitated by Dr. Stuart Bounds. Before the COVID-19 shutdown, county participated in the Courageous Conversation Beyond Diversity training, sponsored by the Talbot Family Network in partnership with the Talbot County Public Schools. The Talbot County Sheriff's Department also joined in the cultural competency training, and the deputies also participated in the county's conversation on race. Over the last 5 years, Sheriff Gamble has hired 21 new employees, of which 10 were minorities, 5 African Americans, 1 Hispanic, and 4 females. And to his credit, Sheriff Gamble hired the first Spanish-speaking deputy in the history of the department. While I am proud of the steps we have taken to bring diversity training to our staff and our hiring of qualified minority candidates, there's still work to be done. And the last thing that I want to do is rest on our laurels. We can do better, and we must be better, as the citizens we serve expect and deserve nothing less than our best. The public demonstration in Easton on Saturday was amazing to witness. The movement of the young citizens peacefully assembling and calling out the names of George Floyd and the others who have died at the hands of police officers. It was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, "The riot is the voice of the unheard." While what we saw on Saturday certainly was not a riot, it was hard not to hear the voices and to ask yourself, what can I do to be an agent of change in my community? And I certainly hope that each of the participants of the demonstration on Saturday will engage in some way to move the needle to create and implement actionable items that will improve the health and well-being of the people around them. As I thought about the voices and cries for change, I too had to ask myself, how can I help to ensure that diversity stays an important part of the county's policies and regulations? With that thought in mind, I'm asking the Talbot County Council to consider the following requests to enhance diversity of county government and respond to the voices of the people. First, I'm requesting that the county manager produce a report within 30 days to the county council describing what diversity training, seminars, or work groups county staff has attended in the last 2 fiscal years, and what additional action items are being implemented to maintain positive and diverse workforce. Second, I am requesting that the county council work to create a diversity statement to be included in the county's employee handbook. Such a statement should outline the county's commitment to create and maintain a diverse workforce, a place where diverse ideas and thoughts are a welcome part of the work environment. Third, my third request was originally to ask this body, the county council, to consider placing a question on the 2020 presidential election ballot, which would ask the citizens of Talbot County to decide if the Talbot Boy statue should be removed. It is no secret that this council, as well as prior council, has been asked to relocate the Talbot Boy statue. The idea of a ballot question was to put the decision back to the people from which it came more than 100 years ago. Yet, after consulting with the Office of Law, it was discovered that in order for such a question to be placed on a state election ballot, it would require a vote of the General Assembly, and all ballot questions must be submitted to the State Election Board no later than July 31st. As it appears that these two factors will not permit the question to be placed on the 2020 presidential election ballot, it is therefore my request that this council consider a resolution to prohibit all statues depicting persons, signs, or symbols of military actions on the courthouse grounds. The resolution would not prohibit monuments listing the names of Talbot County Veterans of War. The fourth request is for the council to consider a ballot question to change from an unlimited term of office to a term limit council. Term limits would be one way to ensure new people and new ideas come onto the council on a more regular basis. It is recommended that 2 consecutive terms be set as the new limit, and that exiting council members would be required to wait 1 term before being eligible to take a seat on the council. My last request of this council is to consider sending a letter to our federal representatives seeking their support of the Justice in Policing Act of 2020. This federal act is a comprehensive approach to hold police agencies accountable, change the culture of law enforcement, and build trust between law enforcement and our communities. These recommendations are made to this council in the hope that Talbot County will always be a place where people of different race, religion, and cultures are welcome to live, to work, and to participate freely. Thank you, council, for hearing me out. The County Council's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, June the 23rd, beginning at 6 p.m. The council will be convening in open session at 4:30 and immediately adjourning into closed session to discuss real estate, legal, and personnel matters as stated on the closing that meeting. Madam Secretary, is there any more matters before council? Council, we are adjourned. Thank you.